Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're taking on one of the loudest, most fiercely debated topics in the entire tech and finance world right now, Solana versus Ethereum. If you spend like 5 minutes looking into blockchain technology, you're instantly bombarded with noise, tribalism, and these really extreme opinions about these two giant networks. But today, we're clearing away all that noise. We're going to demystify these two massive global computers without picking a side. Because honestly, picking a team before you actually understand the game is exactly how people misunderstand the trade-offs and, frankly, end up losing money. Okay, let's dive into this. You've almost certainly heard these exact lines. Solana is the Ethereum killer, or Ethereum is the only secure one. Now, these statements aren't necessarily entirely wrong, but they are dangerously incomplete. When beginners buy into these toxic, incomplete myths, they just set totally wrong expectations. Then when a network gets congested or briefly goes down, they instantly blame the technology instead of realizing, wait a second, I was just using the wrong tool for the job. Neither of these chains is perfect, right? They both want to be a decentralized global computer, but they made completely, absolutely opposite engineering bets on how to get there. So, to figure out which tool is right for you, here is our roadmap. We'll be looking at 1. The core philosophy, 2. Speed and cost, 3. Security and consensus, 4. Outages versus high fees, and 5. Choosing the right chain. All right, let's get right to it. Section 1. The core philosophy. Both Ethereum and Solana fundamentally share the exact same end goal. They both want to be the base layer of a brand new decentralized internet. But their paths to get there, completely different. And it really all boils down to a theory known as the Blockchain Trilemma. It's basically a rule that says a blockchain can only optimize for 2 out of 3 features. Decentralization, which just means anyone can run it. Security, meaning it's incredibly hard to attack. And scalability, meaning it's fast and cheap. Now, here is the secret to literally everything we're going to talk about today. Ethereum picked decentralized and secure, sacrificing that base layer scalability. Solana picked secure and scalable, sacrificing a bit of decentralization. That one single choice perfectly explains every single difference we are about to see. And this brilliantly illustrates that difference. Ethereum is taking what's called a modular approach. Think of Ethereum's base layer, its layer 1, as this super heavily fortified but kind of slow highway system doing maybe 15 transactions per second. All the actual everyday traffic, the normal users, they're pushed off the main highway and onto incredibly fast city streets called layer 2s, like Arbitrum or Base. Solana, on the other hand, went monolithic. They basically built a massive 20-lane superhighway with 0 exits. They want the apps, the NFTs, and the everyday users to all run directly on one incredibly fast single chain, without ever needing to jump over to a layer 2. Moving on to section 2, speed, cost, and finality. Now, philosophies sounds great in theory, but what happens when you actually use them? Let's look past the marketing hype for a second. Ethereum's base layer handles about 12 real transactions per second. And this is absolutely crucial. It takes about 12 minutes for a transaction to achieve absolute finality, meaning it's locked in and irreversible. So if you're selling a really high-value NFT on Ethereum Layer 1, you really should wait 12 minutes to be 100% sure that money is yours. But look at Ethereum Layer 2s and Solana. They are both incredibly fast. Solana handles hundreds of real user transactions a second with a 2.5-second finality. That kind of speed makes interacting with Web3 feel exactly like swiping a credit card on normal Web 2. But wait, speed isn't the only factor here. Cost is where things get absolutely wild. That number right there, a fraction of a single penny, is the average transaction fee on Solana. It's almost unbelievably cheap, right? By comparison, doing a complex swap or minting an NFT on Ethereum Layer 1 can cost anywhere from $1 to well over $50 in gas fees, simply because space on that fortified highway is just so scarce. However, it's super vital to point out that Ethereum's Layer 2s close this gap a ton, offering fees that generally range between just 2 and 50 cents. Section 3. Security and consensus trade-offs. So you might be wondering, if Solana is that fast and that cheap, why doesn't Ethereum just completely copy them? Well, it's because they approach securing tens of billions of dollars completely differently. Let's break down Ethereum first. It's designed so that almost anyone can jump in and help secure it. Yes, you do need to stake 32 ETH, which, is a pretty hefty chunk of change at around $80,000, but the actual computing power you need is super minimal. You could literally run an Ethereum node on an old laptop or a Raspberry Pi. Because the hardware requirements are so ridiculously low, Ethereum has over 1 million validators worldwide. It prioritizes extreme safety and correctness above literally everything else, aggressively slashing or taking away the ETH of any validator that tries to misbehave.
Solana applies a totally unique twist to all this. Before their validators even agree on what just happened, they use this massive innovation called proof of history. Think of it like a giant cryptographic clock or a metronome for the network. By essentially pre-ordering all the transactions, Solana's validators don't have to waste precious time chatting with each other to figure out the order of events. They just blast forward building blocks incredibly fast. But here is the massive trade-off. You absolutely cannot run this thing on a simple laptop. Solana demands really expensive, high-end data center gear and requires a huge financial stake, often over 50 grand just to be profitable.
Which brings us to Section 4, outages versus high fees. Because they push the limits of their tech in complete opposite directions, they both face some really intense growing pains. So the crucial point is that both chains are going to restrict you under heavy load. They just do it in very different ways. Because Solana prioritizes absolute speed and keeping the chain moving, something called liveness, it's historically been pretty vulnerable to spam. When bots overwhelm the leader node, the whole chain stalls. In fact, Solana has suffered roughly 7 major outages in its history because of exactly this. Ethereum takes the exact opposite approach. Ethereum has never fully halted. It stays up, but under heavy demand, the gas fees just automatically skyrocket to like $100 or $200. So the chain is technically up, but practically, it becomes financially unusable for the average everyday user.
And this all feeds directly into the concept of decentralization, which, by the way, isn't just a simple yes or no, it's a spectrum. Ethereum's lower hardware requirements mean it has around 10,000 full nodes spread all across the globe in regular homes and offices. That makes it incredibly resilient. A single government couldn't easily shut that down. Solana's absolute need for heavy data center equipment naturally limits its node count to just over 2,000. This naturally introduces a somewhat higher centralization risk, simply because those nodes are clustered together in massive commercial server farms.
There's another really critical security layer here called client diversity. Basically, this means having different brands of software actually running the network. So if an Ethereum node running the Geth software hits some fatal bug, the 35% of nodes running Nethermind just ignore the bug and keep the chain moving flawlessly. Solana currently is highly reliant on essentially a single primary piece of client software. That means a single bug can actually halt the whole network. Now, to be fair, they are actively fixing this with a highly anticipated new client called FireDancer, but as of today, it definitely remains a distinct vulnerability.
All right, Section 5, choosing the right chain. So, now that we understand the deep technical philosophies behind these networks, it's time for some concrete action. Because tech only matters if it actually serves a specific use case, right? If you look at the ecosystems they've cultivated, the split is incredibly obvious. Ethereum is the realm of big money. With roughly $60 billion locked up, it handles fewer total transactions, but those transactions are moving massive institutional wealth. It powers giant decentralized autonomous organizations and supports all the blue-chip DeFi protocols. Solana? That is the realm of the everyday consumer. It has around $5 billion locked up, but it routinely handles millions of daily active users doing high-volume, low-value stuff, like micropayments, trading meme tokens, or just playing games right on their phones. A really great way to visualize this difference is what we like to call the $5 test. If we're ever going to onboard the next billion users into crypto, we have to account for people who honestly only have $5 to play with. On Ethereum's base layer, attempting just one single transaction will likely burn that entire $5 in gas fees immediately. Boom, gone. If you bridge over to an Ethereum layer 2, that $5 might comfortably last you a few weeks. But on Solana, with fees sitting at a fraction of a penny, that $5 bill is going to cover around 20,000 transactions. It natively supports those sub-cent fees right now, today. So let's deliver the highly actionable framework here. This is your decision tree. Are you moving or storing over 100 grand? Go with Ethereum Layer 1. You want the maximum global security and decentralization possible. Are you just doing some daily trading or messing around in DeFi? You're going to want Solana or an Ethereum Layer 2. Launching a massive 10,000-piece NFT collection? Definitely Solana or a Layer 2 like Base, otherwise gas fees will literally ruin you. Building an app that needs to feel as fast as Instagram on a mobile phone? Solana's 400 millisecond block times just win hands down. As you can see, there is absolutely no single winner here for everything. And that brings us to our final thought. The absolute biggest mistake you can make in this space is getting completely swept up in the tribalism. These two networks represent brilliant, entirely different engineering approaches to a hugely complex problem.
Embracing a multi-chain future, that's exactly how you protect your investments and find the best opportunities out there. So moving forward, let's drop the tribalism. Instead of asking which chain is better, ask yourself, which chain is better for this specific job? Thanks so much for joining us on this explainer today. Stay curious, and we'll see you next time.